then going into Gasoline, this song is really dense, especially when you look into like the lyrics and what he's saying.
Yeah.
And it was really, the hook was so subtle and dark, it lulls you to sleep, but it's so striking as he contemplates his own accidental overdose and what his lover should do in that circumstance. And
Yeah.
and wrapping him up in sheets and setting him to, I was like, bro, what are you on right now? Is this the kind of stuff that you really be imagining?
Are you
And
okay? Like,
yeah.
Let me put you on game.
let's get into our next topic. Let's talk music. We've got an absolutely huge release to talk about this week. One of the biggest
Yeah.
artists in music, The Weeknd, with his new project, Dawn FM, following up his previous project, After Hours. There's been a lot of buzz about this album. There's been a lot of talk around it from fans and from dissenters alike on how good or not good it is. But we're here to talk about it. We're here to wade through all of that and to get to our opinions. So how are you feeling about the newest offering from Abel?
Your man Abel, he Kane. Okay. The Weeknd.
Wow. Boo.
Yeah, man, I couldn't help it. He really created a project that has an element that I always enjoy. It makes me want to uncover the layers that he placed in it. And it has a way, it has me as a patient listener wanting to hear it more and more so that I can really uncover what exactly he's talking about in his music. It gets better with each listen, and it carries this 80s production style that was really modernized and made experimental in a lot of different ways. But it also carried that familiar darkness that we expect from The Weeknd. And this project is really juxtaposed thematically with After Hours, in terms of it being, After Hours was like more of a brighter, sonically, with themes of like loneliness and heartbreak, whereas this album is darker on the exterior, but it feels more cathartic, and it attempts to embrace themes like complicated love and his attempts to kind of rectify his past. And it was really a breath of fresh air. Even from the album cover, it was really artfully done. It's a picture of him as an old man, with shades of like hues of blue, that is very stylistically similar to what you might see at dawn, supposedly, with just this very faint bright light behind him, which is really masterfully done, because it just says so much about his thought process and the creative direction that they took with this project. And yeah, I can't wait to get into this track by track breakdown.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the cover. It flies and it goes directly in the opposite direction of what the After Hours cover looks like. It's a lot of red, it's a lot of gold light to sort of go like from that warmth to the complete opposite. It speaks to what he's doing here, and I'm excited to get into it as well. To get to my overall thoughts, I'm really glad that we don't operate in the way that the other channels do, or other channels in general do, with reviewing things like the day or two after it comes out. Because if we did, I would have hated this. Like the first like two times I listened to it, it really sounded like one long song to me. But
Yeah.
something happened on like the third listen where it just kind of opened up to me, and I really began to enjoy it. Like the sound, I don't know, it almost felt like I was listening to an entirely different album. So I'm glad we really got the time to sit with it and really enjoy it, because I really enjoy the album overall. I think it's really interesting, and even I think the concept behind it makes it that much more interesting. And like you said, I like how he's drawing these narratives out throughout his albums now, like with After Hours kind of being about the ills and the evils of Hollywood, and how everything isn't really what it seems to be on first look, and how there's like a kind of a dark underbelly to it, but kind of presenting it in this really showy, blissful way. And then Dawn FM, the concept of his older self, I think what he's trying to do, reflect on his sins as he's transitioning into the afterlife through a radio station. It's such an interesting way to go about it, but also to carry a theme from one album to the next, I think is really interesting. He said this is the second of a trilogy, so it kind of makes you excited for what the third one is going to be like. But to get into the track list, Dawn FM, it really sets the stage for what you're going to be getting into. Really haunting, but kind of inviting in the same sense. I think it's just a really cool concept. And then you get into Gasoline, of course, he's leaning into the throwback 80s sound. Even the vocal tone on the intro, it sounds like, like it would be on the soundtrack to like an 80s show, 80s TV show.
Yeah.
I love the really jittery production, and he has a really good way of putting, like a Vince Staples-esque way of putting really depressing subject matter into really light production. So you're kind of being, it's like medicine in the candy kind of thing. And I love him singing about this really destructive, hedonistic relationship and kind of balancing that with him feeling like that life is essentially meaningless, and talking about, engaging in this breath play and taking, like choking someone or something to the point of like almost no return, and the numbness that comes with that, and comparing it to being a nihilist, which I think is pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just going right into how do I make you love me, and the transitions between these songs are great too. They seamlessly go between, track to track. And I really like his vocals here on the chorus. It's a really well placed and catchy falsetto. The production is great. It's really great synth work. It's just a really strong opening to the album.
Oh yeah. I really want to piggyback on that. Thinking about Dawn FM, how this album really kicks the door open, and the futuristic soundscapes, they were really psychedelic. And this song really epitomized the direction of the album. It was a little experimental with that really strong 80s sound that they lean into heavy. And the FM radio theme that I thought actually had potential to be very corny, but because I've seen it done before, in recent years, you've seen Vince Staple do it. I remember, the Doggy Style album with Snoop Dogg, and I'm sure other artists have kind of thrown that into their albums to give it that kind of feel. But he did it in a way that hasn't been done before, where this station, like you said, is kind of guiding you through the purgatory and into the afterlife in a lot of different ways. And I just like the way he incorporated it. Then going into Gasoline, this song is really dense, especially when you look into like the lyrics and what he's saying. And It was really, the hook was so subtle and dark, but it kind of lulls you to sleep. But it's so striking as he contemplates his own accidental overdose and what his lover should do in that circumstance. And wrapping him up in sheets and setting him to, I was like, bro, what are you on right now? Is this the kind of stuff that you really be imagining?
Are you okay?
Yeah. And it's so artful. And I didn't really pick up on it. You kind of just like, oh, this is a nice sound. And then you read the lyrics and you're like, bruh, chill.
But that's what you would do, right? If someone if someone OD'd or whatever, I don't endorse drug use, but if someone OD'd, like you don't want anyone to know you were using illicit drugs, so you would wrap the body up and like do whatever with it. So I think that's kind of what he's trying to say. It's just like, yeah, like I'm doing something messed up and I don't want you to get caught up in it. So just burn me, which is insane. And he's just doing all of this over like, fist bump music. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, The Weeknd, he has an ability to take really dark stuff and make it very enjoyable. And it's striking how he's able to do that song after song, year after year. I Can't Feel My Face. That was a Nickelodeon Teen Choice Award.
It's a cocaine anthem. It's just like it just selling us like hedonism, in a lollipop, basically.
Yeah. But okay, let me get off that tangent. How Do I Make You Love Me? Full on 80s jam. Really bright and expressive. And then going into Take My Breath, my God, what a very fun, infectious song. I liked how it sounded like the Eye of the Tiger in the beginning with the electric strumming intro, but it slowly and deliberately transitions into like really bright synths and a gritty synth that kind of enveloped the song.
I thought it sounded like Bootylicious by Destiny's Child. But okay. I mean, different strokes for different folks. Continue.
Right. And this song is just really an instrumental journey. I mean, he starts singing and it gets better, and he doesn't miss when it comes to having at least one dynamite single on all of his projects. And this song really keeps that streak alive. You could tell that the producer and himself were just having fun experimenting with sounds going up and down, back and forth, in and out, really just stretching this beat in so many different ways that was just really fantastic to go through. And then going into Sacrifice, it was an excellent like follow-up from the previous song. And the guitar chords, they were full of pop and a really plucky presence. Then it builds up into the pre-chorus and hook that was so satisfying. The bridge really used vocal manipulation in a masterful way, alongside a really steady beat that was upbeat but had you feeling like you were part of the underworld in a way. And then moving on to like this really interesting stretch, A Tale by Quincy, a really fascinating story about his life and his upbringing and how it impacted relationships with like lovers and family members. And it was really sage-like advice to hear Quincy Jones talking about this. And it was really fascinating to have this included in the project, because it shows me that The Weeknd is at least looking for ways to change his life and his circumstance in some ways. And with all the hedonism that he's often singing and going on about, there's also a reflective nature in his music that is really exemplary of R&B at its core, and him just wanting love and acceptance and to be freed from the just the nihilistic nature that he can kind of fall into at times. And then just transitioning beautifully into Out of Time. It was a begging ass R&B song. You know, I thought this is right up your alley. And it was a really nice departure from his typical production. It gave me really an 80s feel of when Quincy was really in his bag, producing music for guys like Michael Jackson. And I really got that feeling. The sample is great. It was really basically ripped from the song Midnight Pretenders by Tomoko Oran. And the horns on top of it made it different just enough to make it a Weeknd song. But if you listen to where it actually got its, music from, or where the sample came from, you realize that he almost did a cover.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really thought that this was a really strong stretch of the album. How about you?
Yeah, Take My Breath, like that shit goes. Like there's no there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like it's a jam. Like I love what he's doing with his vocals. It's super catchy and epic. I love how sinister the keys and the synth sound on it. Almost sounds like Dracula in some ways. Yeah, the cascading synths. The synths on this album they're great. I think if you make 80s music, you got to have great synths. And I think, it really comes through. Max Martin, whose production discography, if anybody wants to take a look at it, is insane. Like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, like he's a hit maker, and he's on pretty much most of this album. So yeah, it really shows his ability to craft catchy rhythms and beats. Yeah, I think this track really dials home his regret about his past lifestyle and how his influence can have a negative effect on the people around him. And it really works well with the theme of the album about, him reflecting on his life. Sacrifice, again, I really love the warp guitar on that one. The pre-chorus sounds great. It sounds so much like Thriller. Like he's not even making any, apologies about it. It sounds just like Thriller. But he does a good enough job of flipping it and taking like the kind of really pleasant harmonies on that song and twisting it in a way that makes the song its own. But the influence is clear. But I think that's the way you do, like, you show your influences without necessarily ripping it off. So I thought that was a really great touch. And of course, in terms of the themes of the album, it was just a really intriguing song about his selfishness and like not wanting to give up that hedonistic lifestyle for the sake of love, despite his partner wanting to be with him. So I think that was a theme on a lot of his music, but really dialed it home here. And A Tale by Quincy, of course, a really sad tale. Out of Time was a nice change of pace. I really liked the harmonies on the chorus, that almost flute sounding instrument. I couldn't really pick out exactly what it was, but that was really pleasant. And then Out of Time, like it sounds on its face like a really pleasant dance track. But if you think about the theme of the album and him literally being on the verge of death, him saying he's out of time, like it really, I don't know, it really it gives a song like an entirely different meaning and flow to it. So I really appreciated him doing that.
More of those layers that I was talking about. Just I didn't even think of that, and that was so beautiful. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah, he's got that littered throughout the album. Like once you understand what the album is about, it gives it a new feel, which is good because a lot of albums today don't really have a lot of replayability. So I think with this one, between the presentation with the videos and the concept and the little nuggets that he drops throughout it, like I think it gives you a lot of things to chew on so you can come back to it. But here we go again. I think that's more close to the Weeknd that we're more familiar with vocally, because I think he's doing a lot of different things vocally on the earlier part of the album. It fits nicely with the interlude, him saying he's being basically pulled further and further into the radio station. Tyler, the Creator, has a good verse. He sounded like Kodak Black to me, so for some reason on the first part of his verse. I don't know why, but I really enjoyed it. Best Friends, that beat just really hits like really hard. Kind of like a Classic Man-esque by Jadena for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, it really hits hard. Is There Someone Else is one of my favorite songs on the project. I really like the pitched up sample. Pitched up R&B samples they're always gonna work. And it works really well. Super catchy, and I think it's one of my favorite tracks. But yeah, really strong stretch.
Yes, definitely. Here we go again. One of my favorites. He was like kind of low key rapping in a way that only The Weeknd does. I wouldn't call it rapping, but he's just really, he has bars and it's really poetic. And I just enjoy the synths and the 80s prom dance slowness vibe to the song. That was really reflective on, current as well as past relationships. And then Tyler kind of further unpacking those themes, where he describes the joys of falling in love, but how society really gets and culture gets in the way of that through marriage laws and that whole ethos, which kind of disrupts what Tyler describes as, a beautiful moment that may not last forever, but society kind of forces you into a box that pushes that foreverness to love, which is really interesting to me. And then going into Best Friends, yeah, really hard-hitting 808s really set the stage for a really smooth melody that was really perfectly crafted around the Weeknd's vocals. It was short but satisfying. And yeah, Is There Someone Else kind of gave me Drew Hill vibes. I really enjoyed that song.
Yeah.
And it's funny how like he's asking for fidelity when he hasn't always been that way. It's like
or at all.
The album goes on to seemingly have him in a state where he's looking for fidelity or is trying to be a better person in some ways. And I feel that reflection again, going into Starry Eyes, which is kind of an extension of Is There Someone Else? It was really sonically done well and just flawless production wise, how these songs just go into one another, like you mentioned earlier. Every Angel is terrifying. It's a really epic score. It sounds like an epic score to a landscape in like scene in a movie. And it was really, this song was just really impactful. Then you have the spoken word poem by a writer named Rainier Maria Rilke. She was German. And it kind of describes the astonishment and the consternation of a deeply reverent angelic experience. Then to juxtapose that with Jim Carrey, who's the narrator of the Dawn FM radio station, just kind of enticing the listener to buy this and the commoditization of this experience. It was really striking and says a lot. And I'm going to do some more deep digging into what that kind of means for this project as a whole. Then going into this last stretch of the album, you have Don't Break My Heart, really repetitive snare that kind of set the pace for the song with dynamic and spacey synths. And then I Heard You're Married. Just Lil Wayne was really messy in his bag. Yeah. You got Lil Wayne and The Weeknd in their messy bag. They borrow from the 80s style with the persistent synths and the 909's drum kit that was really bolstered the atmosphere. And I thought that Wayne's lines like, if I ain't your husband, I can't be a hybrid, and tell hubby kill him, no hubcap. Like, I was like, okay, Lil. Wayne, you still got it, man. After all these years, he still is excellent with these features and being sprinkled into the project. I was really impressed. And then just two really great tracks that ended at Less Than Zero and Phantom Regret. Less Than Zero was one of my favorites. It was like a rock house anthem, and it was a nice departure from the rest of the project. And I think he can make an album straight off from this type of music, like just nothing but this type of house music, and it would still sound bomb. It's like you could put The Weeknd on any kind of production and he's gonna really ball out. And then rolling into Phantom Regret, just really powerful outro track that ties in together a lot of the project as a whole. And the spoken word that Jim Carrey carries, for lack of a better term, was really impressive. It was just some lines here like, now that all the future plans have been postponed, it's time to look back on the things that you thought you owned. Like, just that moment right before death. It's like this whole album is like what you experience in the second between you dying and afterlife, but it's kind of stretched out into this really amazing moment. And then this other line, was it often a dissonant chord you were strumming? Were you ever in tune with the song that life was humming? Just depth. But yeah, how did this last stretch of the album feel for you?
I couldn't say any better. I mean, I echo like pretty much all of your sentiments. It's a really good close to the album, and it really ties the concepts together really, really well. Starry Eyes overall, I thought just kind of felt more like an interlude than a song for me. So it's not necessarily a song I really care to go back to. But I do like the depth that he brought with Every Angel Is Terrifying, like you spoke on with the poem at the end. Don't Break My Heart was okay. I think this stretch of the album is probably my least favorite. Starry Eyes through Don't Break My Heart. I feel like those tracks don't really do it for me. But I think conceptually the album is still strong, even if those tracks aren't like my favorite. I Heard You Married, very messy, but also very Daft Punk in a way. It's really catchy. It's really catchy despite it being pretty reprehensible. Wayne, of course, I think brings a lot of charisma to it. I like him, harmonizing with The Weeknd kind of subtly on the back end of the track. I thought that was cool. Less Than Zero, like a glittery like pop punk song, basically super catchy chorus. Has a really great feel, and I think it really encapsulates the end of the journey, like the pleasantry of the final moment, I think. And I think that's what he was kind of going for. Just closing it out with Phantom Regret to tie the whole concept together. I think this is a really well thought out project, and it was an experience, I think, more than an album for me. So I really enjoyed it. But let me get 4 favorite tracks from you, man.
Thank you for extending it to 4, because this album is full of hits. This is tough, but I think you got to start out with Take My Breath, and then Out of Time. I really enjoy that. Best Friends, man, it was short, but man, it's a really good hit right there. And then finally, I guess I Heard You're Married. But to be honest, like this, I wish I could extend it to like 6 or 7 other tracks, 6 or 7 tracks total, because a lot of this album is really stellar. He didn't, to me, he didn't miss not on one of these songs. How about you?
I guess I'll have to go Gasoline, Take My Breath, Sacrifice, and Is There Someone Else? So yeah, tough. I think you could make an argument for a lot of other songs. I think this album is really solid. But if you had to recommend this to our listeners and our watchers on a scale of hard pass to must listen, what would you say?
I think I'm gonna give this album, a hard must listen. I
mean, almost got me there. Whoa, Bucko.
Yeah, I mean, The Weeknd, he's really on a creative streak that not many other artists can really touch at the moment. The project is a tight 16 tracks. It feels perfectly executed from a creative and artistic and thematic perspective that's kind of bolstered by his incredible vocals, which you kind of take for granted, and songwriting and production. I mean, that EXO Records production team is really on one. And I think this album's definitely going to be on my album of the year list. I know it's early, but to me, it's that good. And I think it has some staying power.
All right. Yeah, that's a big proclamation. It's mid-January. So that's a big one. We're literally 1/24 into the year. So it's all right. Let's see if that sticks. But I can't disagree. I can't disagree with your assessment. I think I liked the album a lot sonically, but I think once I understood it conceptually, it kind of took it to another level for me. I also think it's a must listen. So I think there aren't that many concept albums out there, but I think this is one that's worth listening to, and one that's worth diving into and taking a look deeper into what he's trying to say. Because I think not only is it retrospective on the life of a character that he's created, but it's a retrospective on his own life. So I think that's a really creative place for an artist to work from. So I really enjoyed listening to it. I'm looking forward to the 3rd album on the trilogy to see what, I guess, heaven or hell looks like for this character that he's created. But it's really enjoyable, and it gets the official put you on game stamp of approval from both of us. So stamp it, we on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let us know in the comments what you thought about the Weeknd's new album Dawn FM and what you thought about it compared to his previous works, and if you enjoyed it, because we certainly did. So that'll do it for this review.